It's election season, and throughout the Milwaukee area, voters will be doing more than electing public officials. 9 local school districts are asking taxpayers for money, including Milwaukee Public Schools, the largest school district in the area. MPS wants $252 million over 4 years to support school programming. But not everyone is on board with the request, and some groups are wondering if there are other options to address MPS funding issues. Let's learn more about the MPS referendum from Chris Thiel, Legislative Policy Manager for the district. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Denise. Thanks for having me today.
Of course. Help us understand why MPS needs the $252 million.
Sure. The first thing really as we talk about school funding that I'd like to put out there is we're raising the revenue limit for the district by $252 million. The revenue limit's a technical term in Wisconsin's school funding. But I think people may have heard we're raising the revenue limit by $252 million and assume that means property taxes are going up by that much, which is not the case. We've designed this to phase in over 4 years so that while there will be a property tax impact, predominantly in the first year of this, in years 2, 3, 4, there will be some additional state aid that comes into play to make sure that we're trying to balance things correctly and getting resources to students, but being conscious of the fact that this is something we are asking of the community and the property taxpayers. The reason we're in this situation is frankly the reason that school districts across the state are in this situation as well. The Wisconsin Association of School Business Officials put out a survey recently to their members. These are the people who do the finances for school districts. And of the 421 school districts in the state, their survey indicated that over 130 will be likely going to referendum this year for operational purposes. So that would break a record in the state of Wisconsin. And the primary reason that's happening is because the state has been underfunding students. Simply put, for the last 16 years, per pupil funding has not kept pace with inflation, which is just the cost of doing business, whether you're a school district or anything else. And though we used to have a state law that at least provided that funding and kept it at the pace of inflation, after the 16-year period, we are $3,380 per pupil behind where we should be. And that's really, along with some recent budgeting decisions by the state, really what's driving districts to have to make this decision.
In the case of the MPS referendum, what is the money going to support? Where's the money going to go?
4 years ago, when we went to referendum successfully for the first time, that referendum really was built on the fact that our MPS students were receiving less money per pupil than some of our neighboring districts. The state has a system that was created back in 1992, and just as odd as it is, some kids were literally worth or provided less under state law than others. So what we did with the referendum 4 years ago was commit to making sure that we could get more teachers in the areas of art, music, physical education, librarians, career and tech education. We were providing, education in those areas, but because of that lack of funding, we weren't able to bring in dedicated professionals in some of those areas. So just as an example, over the last 4 years, we've gone from 19% of our students who had a really dedicated music class to now we have 92% of our students in those music classes. So we are still continuing to fill those positions, still really, from the defunding we've experienced, putting the education, the music is in the halls again, the art is up on the walls where it hadn't been a little bit ago. And this effort now, because the state, between the timing of the referendum last time and this time, and during the peaks of inflation that we saw, the state actually 2 years in a row provided 0 per pupil adjustment. And so what we are doing and what other districts are doing is trying to make sure that we're able to maintain all those things, maintain what school is supposed to be about for kids, and continue to build on the momentum that we've made over this last 4-year or 5-year period.
And it's important to note that if the referendum passes, it's not going to totally fill that $200 million hole.
That's correct. That's correct. The way it's designed is the first year, and again, this is because, I'm sure that if we all could just wave a magic wand and get this done, you would just make sure that those cuts didn't happen. But because of the interplay with directing funds to students, being mindful of property taxpayers, the first year, we're increasing the revenue limit by $140 million. And we anticipate a property tax increase of about $97 million because of a variety of factors. So you're right. So that doesn't immediately allow us to make up that $200 million plus gap, but it will definitely go a long way to protecting our students. We've given our principals 2 budgets. They have gone through the exercise of putting together a budget for their school in case the referendum does not pass, and what that would mean for them and what cuts they would have to take. And they're also designing a budget if the referendum passes, because the election or the vote will be in April, but budgeting for schools happens in spring across the state, so they have to prepare for either scenario.
So if this solution doesn't take place, where there's this catch-up work that's done to help address the inflation issue, you mentioned there was a referendum 4 years ago, there's a referendum coming up in April, there's still going to be a gap. If there's no permanent fix at the state level, are taxpayers going to see MPS and other school districts coming back in 4 more years or less, asking for more money to deal with the funding pressure that you have?
The hope would be that we could finally, see some change in Madison, right? I mean, the state has a constitutional obligation to support public school students, whether it's Milwaukee or anywhere else. And we're currently, unfortunately, last in the nation in how we support our students with disabilities. We're near the bottom. The indicators lag, but we're not where we need to be. We're last in the nation in funding English language learners. The state does not have a funding policy to support students with policy. And we're in 2002 or so, we ranked 11th in the country in per pupil funding. As of 2022 or so, we've dropped to 25th or below at this point. So Wisconsin's trajectory supporting students is not where we need it to be. It needs to turn around. And to your point about school districts not wanting to have to go to referendum again, there are advocacy efforts across the state. Wisconsin Rural Schools Alliance, Milwaukee Public Schools, Wisconsin Public Education Network, and others. And even some business partners who have called for the state to get back on track and at least provide that per pupil funding that keeps pace with inflation, and certainly to increase support for students with disabilities. So those things need to be done at the state level, and the state has the resources to do it. We just haven't seen that action.
Real quickly, Chris, one of the things that we noted is that not everyone is in favor of this referendum. So there's some groups that are opposed to it. And they say there are a variety of things that MPS could do differently to find the money within the budget. Almost always people point to the fact that you've seen a significant increase in students, but you still have a significant number of buildings. There hasn't been that kind of a change. Are there things that MPS could do that just may be more painful that could help to solve this budget issue?
Well, there are certainly things we can do, and there are discussions ongoing about facilities comes up as an issue in the city, and not only just the size of our enrollment, but the age of our buildings. And we've got some buildings that we've actually put on the market. Some have been purchased. Some have been sitting there for a period of time. And it's not only, when we went to referendum last time, we talked about the fact that we have 21st century kids in 19th century schools. So we have some beautiful buildings. I was in one the other day. The soul of that building, is fantastic and people love it. And it's 130 years old. So the conversation about, where our students are in the city, the transportation costs related to that, and making sure our kids are respected. We hear stories about new facilities going up in some other places. So how do we, look at our total facility footprint while also bringing the facilities online that our students deserve in the 21st century? So those discussions are happening. The magnitude, however, of the deficit and the magnitude of the underfunding from the state, even if we closed all of our buildings, you wouldn't be able to make up for that $200 million deficit. So there are multiple things happening at the same time here, and the district is pursuing that facilities conversation, but the immediate need, I think, for us and other school districts is just so urgent that's why districts should go on a referendum.
Chris, thanks so much for joining us and walking us through the reasons why MPS is going to referendum. As a reminder, the MPS referendum is on the ballot on April 2nd. Stay with us. We'll be right back.